They handcuffed me in my own driveway while my neighbors watched through their curtains, too terrified to help. Two police officers with shiny badges dragged me toward their squad car, screaming about unpaid HOA fines and criminal property destruction. The acrid smell of burnt barbecue sauce mixed with the metallic taste of pure rage as my Saturday cookout became a public humiliation. My 16-year-old daughter Sage stood frozen on the porch, tears streaming, watching her dad get arrested like some common thug. The cold steel of handcuffs bit into my wrists as they slammed me against what looked like a real patrol car. Here's the twist that'll blow your mind. I'm Chief Garrett Blackwood, 12 years running this town's police department. These weren't real cops. They were hired actors with costume badges sent by my power-hungry HOA president who just made the biggest mistake of her life. But I didn't reveal my identity. I played the helpless victim perfectly. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is letting criminals dig their own graves. What would you do if fake cops showed up at your door? Tell me where you're watching from. Every neighborhood needs to hear this story. Let me back up and tell you how this war started. 6 months ago, I was Chief Garrett Blackwood, a broken man seeking refuge in Willowbrook Estates, one of those picture-perfect gated communities where even the fire hydrants look like they went to finishing school. I'd moved there after watching cancer steal my wife Marina piece by piece over 18 brutal months. She died clutching real estate magazines, circling houses with trembling hands, planning the retirement we'd never share. I bought this place with her life insurance money, 23 years of marriage reduced to a down payment on her final dream. The only light left was Sage, my 16-year-old daughter who visited weekends. We bonded in the garage, restoring a 1967 Mustang convertible that Marina had adored. The sweet smell of motor oil mixed with Sage's vanilla perfume, while classic rock bounced off concrete walls. The only moments when breathing didn't feel like drowning. Day 3 in suburban paradise, I discovered I'd moved to hell with a homeowners association. 3 violation notices appeared overnight like parking tickets from Satan. Grass 0.2 inches too tall, mailbox charcoal black instead of midnight black, garbage cans visible for exactly 4 minutes past pickup time. 4 minutes. I timed it with my police stopwatch, convinced someone was pranking the new cop. They weren't. Welcome to Cordelia Pemberton Hayes' empire of engineered misery. Picture a woman who could make a funeral director seem bubbly. 52, silver hair scraped into a bun tighter than her smile, shark eyes that appraised your net worth before bothering with hello. Her white Mercedes SUV patrolled our streets like a squad car. Vanity plates screaming, "Rules 1," in case anyone forgot who ruled their little corner of suburbia. The toxic bite of paint stripper burned my nostrils as I emergency repainted my mailbox at midnight. Across the street, Cordelia's McMansion blazed under security floods, her Italian gravel driveway crunching under the boots of her landscaping army working overtime to maintain suburban perfection. The first real battle erupted at the monthly HOA meeting. I'd politely questioned a $500 fine for unauthorized commercial activity, changing my truck's oil in my own driveway. Mr. Blackwood, her voice could have crystallized vodka. Perhaps you don't grasp property standards here. This isn't some blue-collar neighborhood where people perform automotive maintenance in public. 24 neighbors became fascinated by their shoelaces. I realized these weren't homeowners. They were hostages paying mortgages to their captor. Sweet Mrs. Chen whispered the terrifying truth afterward. Cordelia had systematically destroyed 2 families through foreclosure lawsuits, seizing their homes over fabricated violations. She wasn't managing a community. She was operating a legal theft ring with HOA letterhead. I'd bought this house to honor Marina's memory and build new ones with Sage. Instead, I'd purchased prime real estate in Cordelia's personal kingdom of fear. Enhanced enforcement begins immediately, she declared, staring straight through my soul. Some residents require stronger encouragement to maintain our standards. That's when this grieving police chief realized Cordelia Pemberton Hayes had just made the fatal mistake of threatening the wrong family. Week 2 of living in Cordelia's surveillance state brought daily doses of manufactured hell. Every morning felt like Christmas from Satan, fresh violation notices tucked under my door like poison pen letters. Car parked 6 inches too far left in my own driveway, $200 fine. Porch light bulb 60 watts instead of mandated 40 watts, $300 fine. Garden hose coiled clockwise instead of counterclockwise, and yes, I'm stone cold serious, $500 fine. The bitter irony stung worse than burnt coffee. I'd spend 12-hour shifts dealing with real crime, armed robberies where families lost everything, domestic violence calls where lives hung by threads, then dragged myself home to find parking tickets on my personal F-150 for commercial vehicle storage. Apparently, my truck looked too working class for Cordelia's suburban utopia. But Tuesday morning shattered my illusions completely. I was nursing my third cup of coffee, watching Mrs. Chen tend her late husband's memorial roses, when movement caught my eye. Golf carts, not normal golf carts. These looked like miniature patrol vehicles with amber flashing lights cruising our streets like mechanical predators. The electric whir of their motors sliced through morning peace as uniformed figures photographed residents' properties with military precision. My detective instincts kicked into overdrive. This wasn't random enforcement. This was systematic surveillance. I grabbed binoculars and watched from behind kitchen curtains as fake security guards methodically documented every house, every car, every manufactured violation they could create from thin air. The realization hit like a freight train. Cordelia had hired her own private compliance patrol. These weren't community volunteers. These were paid enforcers conducting reconnaissance operations on American citizens in their own neighborhood. She'd essentially created her own police force without badges, training, or legal authority to breathe. Something from my criminal justice training nagged at my memory. Cases involving HOA administrators exceeding their authority, charging illegal fees, operating like pocket dictators. I fired up my laptop and dove into our state's HOA regulations. What I discovered made my detective blood boil like lava. Every violation notice included a $75 processing fee. But when I cross-referenced state statutes, administrative costs were legally capped at actual expenses, typically $25.50 maximum. Cordelia was systematically overcharging residents by 300%, multiplying that theft across hundreds of bogus violations throughout our 200-home community. This wasn't neighborhood management. This was organized financial fraud wearing a suburban mask. That weekend, Sage arrived for our sacred Mustang restoration ritual. She immediately noticed my stress lines while we worked on the carburetor, her 16-year-old hands surprisingly steady holding the flashlight in our oil-scented garage sanctuary. "Dad, why don't you just arrest her?" she asked, wiping grease off her fingers with a shop rag that smelled like her grandfather's old garage. "Can't abuse my position, sweetheart," I explained, showing her how to gap spark plugs properly. "Police powers are for actual crimes, not neighborhood squabbles." But my brilliant daughter planted a seed that sprouted immediately. What if she is committing actual crimes? Game changer. Monday morning, I launched my counteroffensive. Filed formal complaints with the State Attorney General's office regarding financial irregularities. Contacted city building permits about Cordelia's golf cart patrol. Discovered they were operating without licensing, insurance, or legal authority to issue citations anywhere, especially on public streets. The community began stirring like a sleeping dragon. Mrs. Chen intercepted me at my mailbox Tuesday evening, her elderly voice trembling with barely contained rage. "Chief Blackwood," she whispered, scanning the street like we were planning a jailbreak. "They charged me $2,000 in landscape compliance fees for Harold's Memorial Garden. 40 years we've called this home, and now they want to destroy the roses my husband planted for our anniversary." That conversation gut-punched me into clarity. This wasn't about petty power trips. Cordelia was systematically targeting vulnerable residents who couldn't fight back. The elderly, the grieving, anyone she perceived as easy prey for her sophisticated intimidation operation. But my investigation was triggering her paranoia. Her white Mercedes started materializing at my driveway's end at random intervals. Brief surveillance missions that made the hair on my neck stand up. She knew someone was disrupting her perfect kingdom but hadn't identified the insurgent. Our neighborhood's peaceful soundtrack transformed into something sinister. The ominous whir of golf cart motors patrolling at dawn, the rustle of citation papers slipping under doors like financial death sentences wrapped in legal language. One thing crystallized like winter ice. Cordelia Pemberton Hayes was about to learn that some people don't break under pressure, especially when that person carries real authority and has nothing left to lose except the memory of his wife's final dream. Cordelia's next assault came disguised as community improvement. Week 3 delivered the financial nuclear bomb, special assessment fees of $1,500 per household for emergency community upgrades. No details, no contractor bids, no explanation, just 30 days to pay or watch your home disappear under lien proceedings. $1,500 for improvements that existed only in Cordelia's criminal imagination. But she saved her cruelest blow for last. Thursday afternoon, I dragged myself home from investigating an actual armed robbery, real crime with real victims, to find a cease and desist notice superglued to my garage door. My weekend car restoration project with Sage apparently violated residential use-only covenants. Cordelia demanded I remove all automotive equipment immediately or face a $5,000 fine for operating an unauthorized commercial garage. The garage, our sacred space where Sage and I honored Marina's memory with grease-stained hands and classic rock echoing off concrete walls, where my daughter learned that broken things could be beautiful again with patience and love. Cordelia wanted to destroy that sanctuary too. Standing in that oil-scented garage, surrounded by Marina's favorite tools and Sage's laughter-filled memories, something inside me shifted from professional interest to personal war. That evening, while reviewing Cordelia's violation photos under harsh fluorescent light, I spotted something that made my detective blood freeze. Reflections in my kitchen window. Telephoto lens reflections captured accidentally in her surveillance shots. This woman was photographing residents through their windows, documenting private moments to manufacture violations like some suburban voyeur. I speed-dialed Detective Riley Thornton, my most trusted officer and part-time private investigator. Riley had 20 years of surveillance experience and a personal hatred for criminals who targeted families. "Chief, you're describing systematic stalking with federal privacy implications," Riley growled after reviewing my evidence. "This isn't HOA enforcement. This is criminal harassment with a legal facade. Want me to help destroy this wannabe dictator?" Riley's expertise transformed my amateur investigation into a professional operation. We installed discreet counter-surveillance around my property, turning Cordelia's own tactics against her. Within 48 hours, we had crystal-clear footage of her telephoto work, criminal privacy violations that would make federal prosecutors salivate. But our real breakthrough came from studying her golf cart patrol's ticket-writing activities. I remembered a case from my rookie patrol days where private security overstepped their authority, thinking uniforms gave them police powers. The pattern was identical. Cordelia's carts were issuing citations on public streets, which only licensed law enforcement could legally do. Every ticket they wrote was impersonating police officers, felony charges that carried serious prison time. My investigation was creating an underground resistance movement. Mrs. Chen, emboldened by seeing someone fight back, introduced me to other victims. Veteran Hank Morrison, fined for displaying his American flag improperly. Apparently, patriotism violated Cordelia's aesthetic standards. Young couple Jasper and Dakota Williams charged $800 because their toddler's sidewalk chalk art was visible from the street. Sidewalk chalk. $800 for a 3-year-old's rainbow drawings. Cordelia's financial warfare reached its crescendo with my latest invoice. $3,200 in accumulated fines, payable at $400 monthly for 8 months or immediate lien proceedings. Against the house I'd bought with Marina's life insurance money, the last physical piece of our 23-year love story. That night, breathing in the familiar cocktail of WD-40 and memories, I made the decision that would end this nightmare permanently. Riley helped me install professional-grade hidden cameras, law enforcement quality surveillance that would capture every illegal act in high-definition detail. Within 1 week, we struck evidence gold. Video of Cordelia's patrol illegally entering private driveways, peering through garage windows, photographing personal property without consent, criminal trespassing with intent to harass, felony charges that would stick like superglue in court. I quietly contacted the district attorney's HOA fraud division, specialists I'd collaborated with on previous cases. Their revelation chilled me to the bone. Cordelia's special assessments constituted theft by deception under state law if funds weren't used as promised. Her entire operation was flirting with organized crime statutes. The mechanical click of telephoto camera shutters became our neighborhood's dawn chorus of terror. Cordelia conducted her stalking sessions at sunrise, when decent people were drinking coffee and preparing for honest work. That predatory clicking echoed off houses like a hunter marking prey. But every photograph was another felony charge. Every illegal citation was federal evidence. Every privacy violation was another year added to her eventual prison sentence. Cordelia thought she was terrorizing a broken widower who'd cave under financial pressure. She had no idea she was being methodically hunted by someone who built airtight criminal cases for a living. She was about to learn that grief hadn't weakened me. It had transformed me into something infinitely more dangerous. A patient, furious police chief with nothing left to lose except the promise I'd made to Marina's memory. By week 4, Cordelia realized she wasn't fighting a grieving widower. She was battling organized resistance. Her desperation reeked like gasoline-soaked panic as she hired actual private investigators to research every defiant resident, hunting for blackmail material with the ruthless efficiency of a political assassin. The personal warfare exploded beyond petty harassment into full-scale character destruction. Official notice arrived via certified mail. My property would be liened within 72 hours unless I paid $4,800 in accumulated fines. That number had mysteriously multiplied through compound penalty clauses, buried in legal fine print that would embarrass loan sharks. But here's where Cordelia's arrogance became her fatal miscalculation. When her investigators discovered I was the police chief, any rational criminal would have retreated faster than a vampire from sunrise. Instead, she doubled down with calculated legal warfare that revealed the bottomless depths of her sociopathic ambition. This woman actually believed she could intimidate a cop into submission. Her next move confirmed complete detachment from reality. Cordelia announced compliance hearings for all resistant residents, show trials where her puppet board would play judge, jury, and executioner. She threatened immediate foreclosure proceedings against anyone refusing to grovel before her suburban tribunal. Mrs. Chen's summons arrived the same day as Hank Morrison's and the Williams families. The message blazed crystal clear: submit to public humiliation or watch your homes disappear into Cordelia's legal meat grinder. While she orchestrated her courtroom theater, I was methodically building a federal case that would transform her previous crimes into footnotes. Working through back channels with the DA's white-collar division, I uncovered the game-changing truth. Cordelia had been systematically looting HOA accounts for over 2 years. Those emergency assessments weren't funding community improvements. They were flowing like stolen rivers into personal bank accounts she controlled across multiple states. This wasn't neighborhood management. This was organized theft wrapped in suburban respectability. My federal law enforcement training recognized the pattern immediately from white-collar crime seminars. HOA fraud followed predictable blueprints: manufactured violations, illegal fee structures, embezzled funds, and witness intimidation campaigns. Cordelia was methodically checking every box on the federal prosecution's most wanted list. She'd scheduled my compliance hearing as her grand finale, a public execution designed to decapitate the resistance movement. Her preparation included character assassination files suggesting I was mentally unstable from grief, possibly self-medicating with alcohol. Pure fiction crafted to justify her harassment campaign and destroy my professional reputation. But that Saturday evening, while Sage helped organize evidence in our sacred garage, my brilliant daughter made the discovery that demolished Cordelia's entire house of lies. The familiar blend of motor oil and her vanilla lip gloss filled the air as she methodically sorted violation notices with teenage precision that would have impressed FBI investigators. "Dad, something's seriously wrong here," she said, comparing 3 citations side by side under the harsh fluorescent light. "These violation codes don't exist anywhere in the actual HOA documents." My daughter had just cracked the con of the century. I immediately cross-referenced every violation Cordelia had issued against our community's official governing documents. 60% of her citations referenced completely fabricated rules she'd invented to legitimize her extortion empire. Armed with this revelation, I reviewed my surveillance footage with fresh eyes. Cordelia's enforcement team had escalated from photography to outright burglary, illegally entering residents' backyards to manufacture violations through criminal trespassing. The predatory creak of backyard gates opening at dawn had replaced our neighborhood's peaceful morning soundtrack with the sound of systematic breaking and entering. But the most devastating discovery came from diving deeper into state corporate records. Cordelia had never properly filed her board elections with the Corporation Commission. Her entire authority structure was legally worthless. Every fine, every violation, every threat she'd issued was backed by absolutely zero legitimate power. She was essentially a suburban con artist who'd convinced 200 families she possessed authority that had never legally existed. I discreetly contacted neighboring departments, sharing intelligence about her fake enforcement operation. The pattern that emerged made my investigative instincts roar with satisfaction. Similar fraud complaints across 3 counties, identical tactics, same sophisticated legal manipulation disguised as community management. This wasn't isolated neighborhood terrorism. This was an organized criminal enterprise operating across state lines with federal implications that would dominate news cycles. Late nights at the station became my war room, the bitter smell of burnt coffee mixing with the satisfaction of assembling prosecution folders that read like organized crime indictments. Every document added weight to evidence boxes that would soon become Cordelia's prison sentence. The woman who'd tried to steal my family's last connection to Marina was about to face something she'd never encountered. A police chief who specialized in building cases that federal prosecutors loved to prosecute. Cordelia Pemberton Hayes had terrorized the wrong family. Now she was about to discover that some people fight back with indictments, not angry letters. The moment that shattered Cordelia's world came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, buried in financial documents that could cure chronic insomnia. I was slumped over my kitchen table, drowning in coffee-stained HOA records and bank statements, when I discovered the evidence that would send Cordelia to federal prison for decades. Forged signatures, dozens of them spanning 2 years of financial documents. Not just embezzlement, systematic document fraud across multiple banks, multiple states, multiple federal jurisdictions that would make organized crime bosses envious. Every emergency assessment, every community improvement fund, every administrative fee had been authorized by signatures belonging to board members who'd never seen the paperwork, never attended the meetings, never agreed to rob their neighbors blind. The criminal empire's scope made my investigative instincts roar with satisfaction. Over $200,000 in stolen funds flowing through a spider web of shell corporations, fake business accounts, and interstate wire transfers. This wasn't neighborhood corruption. This was federal racketeering that would dominate headlines and ruin lives permanently. But discovering Cordelia's twisted motivation was like peering into the abyss of human greed. Her real estate empire had collapsed during the recession, leaving her hemorrhaging money and desperate for income. She'd systematically infiltrated HOA boards across 3 counties, weaponizing her positions to generate personal revenue while orchestrating foreclosures on properties she could steal and flip for massive profit. It was brilliant, methodical, and absolutely evil. The fake police operation became horrifyingly real when I traced her online shopping history. Cordelia had been purchasing realistic law enforcement badges, official-looking identification cards, and professional uniform accessories from costume suppliers and private security vendors. Her compliance patrol wasn't just exceeding authority, they were committing federal felonies by impersonating police officers to terrorize residents into paying imaginary fines. Wire fraud, mail fraud, interstate theft, conspiracy charges, witness intimidation, and federal impersonation of law enforcement. The woman had built herself a legal nightmare, one felony at a time. The district attorney's call made my entire week. FBI White-Collar Crime Division was officially interested. When federal agents start salivating over local HOA cases, you've uncovered something that transcends neighborhood disputes and enters organized crime territory. The revelation that destroyed my remaining faith in humanity came from analyzing property records with fresh eyes. 12 families had lost their homes through Cordelia's systematic document fraud over 3 years. 12 families had watched generational properties vanish because a sociopathic criminal had forged signatures and manufactured violations to steal their most precious possessions. Mrs. Chen's $2,000 landscape compliance fees suddenly crystallized with devastating clarity. This wasn't random harassment. This was calculated targeting designed to force foreclosure so Cordelia could seize and flip her home for profit. The memorial garden where her late husband had planted anniversary roses was just another asset in Cordelia's theft machine. That evening, as the sweet scent of honeysuckle drifted across Mrs. Chen's porch and Harold's roses swayed in the twilight breeze, she revealed the truth that changed everything. "Chief Blackwood, I need to tell you something important," she said, her voice suddenly sharp with prosecutorial authority. "I'm not just a retired teacher. I spent 30 years as a federal prosecutor specializing in white-collar crime. I've been documenting Cordelia's operation for 8 months, building a case file that would make my former FBI colleagues weep with gratitude. The power shift was seismic. I was no longer a grieving widower defending his family's sanctuary. I was the lead investigator in a major federal criminal enterprise, backed by a retired prosecutor who understood every legal nuance needed to destroy Cordelia's operation permanently. Mrs. Chen's federal expertise combined with my police authority and evidence-gathering capabilities created something Cordelia had never encountered. Competent opposition that knew exactly how to dismantle criminal organizations using the full weight of federal justice. The woman who tried to steal Marina's final dream and destroy my healing sanctuary was about to discover that some enemies fight back with federal indictments, not strongly worded letters. My garage transformed from weekend sanctuary into federal war room within 48 hours. The same concrete space where Sage and I honored Marina's memory by restoring her beloved Mustang became mission control for dismantling Cordelia's criminal empire. Evidence boards plastered every wall, financial flowcharts mapped stolen money like a conspiracy thriller, and legal precedents were organized with surgical precision. The sweet smell of motor oil mixed with burnt coffee's bitter bite as Mrs. Chen and I worked 18-hour days building a prosecution case that would make federal attorneys weep with gratitude. Our team assembled like veterans responding to a call for justice. Mrs. Chen brought 30 years of federal prosecution experience and encyclopedic knowledge of white-collar crime statutes. Detective Riley Thornton contributed surveillance expertise and personal hatred for criminals who targeted families. Hank Morrison, our neighborhood veteran, organized community resistance with tactical efficiency learned during 2 overseas deployments. County DA investigator Marcus Webb specialized in financial crimes and had been hunting HOA fraud rings across multiple jurisdictions. The legal trap we designed was beautiful in its lethal simplicity. Let Cordelia escalate to her fake arrest scheme while being monitored by real federal law enforcement. We'd catch her committing multiple felonies on professional surveillance equipment that would destroy her in any courtroom from here to Washington, D.C. Technical preparation consumed our nights. Professional-grade recording devices were strategically hidden throughout my property. FBI white-collar division agents coordinated surveillance from unmarked vehicles, practically salivating over evidence files that read like organized crime novels. Search warrants sat ready for simultaneous execution at Cordelia's multiple properties and bank accounts spanning 3 states. Mrs. Chen's federal connections proved invaluable as she guided me through prosecution strategies designed to maximize Cordelia's prison sentence while protecting every victimized family. Federal charges are beautiful, she explained over Chinese takeout, her prosecutorial instincts sharp as ever. Cordelia can't plea bargain out of decades in prison when she's violated this many federal statutes. The woman built herself a legal death sentence. We established community protection protocols that extended beyond punishing Cordelia. Pro bono lawyers volunteered to help families fight fraudulent foreclosures and recover stolen fees. A victim assistance fund was quietly organized through my police department's community outreach program to cover legal costs for residents who couldn't afford justice. The insurance fraud angle Mrs. Chen discovered added devastating federal penalties to our growing case. Cordelia had been filing false insurance claims on behalf of multiple HOAs, collecting money for imaginary damages and pocketing proceeds. Insurance fraud carried mandatory minimum sentences that would essentially guarantee she'd die in federal prison. During my years in law enforcement, I'd learned that HOA governing documents are public record in most states. Residents can always request copies before buying homes in any community. Federal mail fraud charges automatically apply when HOA violations are sent through postal service, turning local harassment into federal crimes. Most importantly, impersonating law enforcement officers carries serious felony charges in all 50 states, with no possibility of pleading down to misdemeanors. Our evidence preservation operation resembled a federal task force investigation. Every fake badge purchase was traced through online vendors and credit card records. Every forged signature was verified by handwriting experts who'd testified in federal court. Every stolen dollar was tracked through forensic accounting that would impress Treasury investigators. The timing had to be perfect. We needed Cordelia to commit her fake arrest performance while federal agents documented every criminal act, creating undeniable evidence that no defense attorney could spin or explain away. Community healing became equally crucial. We organized neighborhood meetings to rebuild trust systematically destroyed by years of terror. A block party was planned for after justice was served. Something positive to replace the fear that had paralyzed families for too long. My personal motivation crystallized during those late nights surrounded by evidence that would destroy the woman who'd tried to steal Marina's final dream. This wasn't just about protecting my family's sanctuary. It was about honoring my wife's belief that good people must never surrender to evil, regardless of how sophisticated or legally manipulative that evil appears. The garage workshop where Marina had imagined weekend projects with Sage became the headquarters where her husband orchestrated complete destruction of a criminal who'd systematically targeted vulnerable families for organized theft. During our final preparation session, the familiar cocktail of WD-40 and determination filled the air while Mrs. Chen and I reviewed our prosecution timeline. Every piece of evidence was chronologically organized. Every witness was prepared and ready. Every federal charge was documented with supporting materials that would make conviction absolutely inevitable. The warm yellow light illuminating Marina's dreamed-of workspace now spotlighted legal documents that would deliver justice for 12 families who'd lost their homes, to Cordelia's sophisticated theft operation. Cordelia Pemberton Hayes believed she was terrorizing isolated victims with no recourse against her legal manipulation. She had no idea she was about to face coordinated federal prosecution by people who specialized in permanently destroying criminal enterprises. The woman who'd declared war on my family's healing sanctuary was about to discover that some battles end with federal indictments, not neighborhood surrender. Cordelia's desperation reached psychotic levels when she realized I was the police chief. Instead of retreating like any rational criminal, she launched a systematic campaign to destroy my professional reputation and drive me out of law enforcement entirely. Her twisted logic was simple: eliminate the threat by eliminating the threatener. She filed false complaints with state police internal affairs, crafting elaborate lies about me using my position to intimidate innocent residents. According to her fabricated reports, I was an unstable widower who'd gone rogue, threatening families and abusing police authority to settle personal grudges. The irony burned like acid. She was accusing me of exactly what she'd been doing for years. But Cordelia's sabotage escalated beyond character assassination into actual property destruction. Her enforcement team began vandalizing resistant residents' properties under cover of darkness, then citing them for failure to maintain community standards the next morning. Broken sprinkler heads flooded Mrs. Chen's memorial garden. Trash bags were dumped across Hank Morrison's driveway. The Williams family's mailbox was smashed with a sledgehammer. Then they received a $600 fine for damaged community infrastructure. The pre-dawn sound of breaking glass and splintering wood became our neighborhood's new alarm clock, followed by the rustle of violation notices being slipped under doors like ransom demands. When intimidation and vandalism failed to break my resolve, Cordelia attempted something that would have been laughable if it weren't so pathetically criminal: bribery. Through carefully chosen intermediaries, she offered me $10,000 to relocate for the good of community harmony. When I ignored her blood money, she escalated to direct threats about making my professional life very difficult through political connections and media manipulation. The media warfare began with local news contacts, where Cordelia planted stories suggesting a rogue police chief was terrorizing a peaceful community. She painted herself as a concerned citizen trying to protect families from an unstable officer who'd lost his grip on reality after his wife's tragic death. Watching her twist Marina's memory into a weapon nearly broke my professional composure. But Mrs. Chen's prosecutorial wisdom kept me focused. Let her dig deeper. Every lie she tells creates more evidence for federal prosecutors. The FBI investigation pressure intensified as wire fraud evidence mounted like an avalanche. Cordelia realized the federal net was closing, but her narcissistic personality couldn't accept defeat. Instead of cutting losses and fleeing, she implemented martial law-style enforcement throughout our community. Her patrol teams began conducting safety inspections, illegal searches of resistant residents' properties without warrants, permission, or legal authority. They photographed personal belongings, documented private conversations, and created detailed files on anyone who'd opposed Cordelia's reign of terror. The chemical smell of spray paint filled morning air as her vandals marked houses for targeting, followed by the mechanical whir of golf carts conducting surveillance like enemy reconnaissance missions. But every desperate move provided more federal evidence: witness intimidation charges, conspiracy to commit burglary, civil rights violations, organized harassment across state lines. Cordelia was systematically adding decades to her eventual prison sentence with each escalating crime. The fake emergency she declared took her delusions to new heights of criminal stupidity. Citing community security threats posed by militant residents, she justified increased enforcement and expedited foreclosure procedures. According to her emergency declaration, normal families exercising their legal rights had become domestic terrorists, requiring immediate neutralization. My surveillance cameras captured everything in high-definition detail. Her patrol teams conducting illegal searches, her vandalism crews destroying property under cover of darkness, her intimidation specialists threatening elderly residents with homelessness if they didn't submit to her authority. Professional protection arrived when my superiors and the mayor reviewed our evidence files. After examining documented proof of Cordelia's systematic criminal enterprise, they issued full department support for my investigation. My professional reputation became bulletproof against her character assassination attempts. The mayor's public statement made headlines. Chief Blackwood has this administration's complete confidence and support in investigating serious criminal activity affecting our community. We commend his professional handling of what appears to be organized fraud disguised as neighborhood management. But Cordelia's final gambit revealed the true depths of her sociopathic desperation. She filed emergency foreclosure proceedings against my house through falsified legal documents, claiming I posed an immediate community safety threat that justified seizing my property without due process. The house Marina and I had chosen together, the sanctuary where Sage learned that broken things could be beautiful again. Cordelia wanted to steal the last physical connection to our family's dreams and sell it for profit like she'd done to 12 other families. That's when federal intervention protocols activated automatically. Attempting to steal a police chief's home through document fraud while under federal investigation qualified as obstruction of justice with witness intimidation enhancements. The sound of Cordelia's world collapsing was deafening and music to my ears. Every photograph she took became evidence of stalking. Every illegal citation became federal mail fraud. Every privacy violation became another year in federal prison. The woman who'd thought she could intimidate a grieving widower was being systematically destroyed by someone who understood that patience and evidence always defeat desperation and crime. Cordelia's endgame arrived like a badly scripted crime drama, but with real handcuffs and federal consequences. Her final gambit was hiring professional actors with realistic police uniforms to arrest me for multiple community violations and threatening behavior toward residents. She descended so far into criminal delusion that she believed fake cops could intimidate a real police chief into submission. The irony was breathtaking and about to become her legal destruction. Professional coordination transformed my neighborhood into a federal sting operation. Real backup officers positioned themselves invisibly around surrounding houses, body cameras active, federal agents monitoring communications from unmarked surveillance vehicles. Every word, every action, every criminal choice Cordelia made would be documented in courtroom-quality evidence. Mrs. Chen's prosecutorial experience proved invaluable in preparing our witness strategy. Resistant residents received discreet alerts about the fake arrest attempt, ready to provide testimony and video evidence that would devastate any defense attorney foolish enough to represent Cordelia. But the psychological warfare intensified as Cordelia spread malicious rumors designed to isolate me from community support. According to her whisper campaign, I was facing professional investigation, would be fired imminently, and had become mentally unstable from grief. Desperate lies intended to make residents afraid of supporting someone who might not be able to protect them. The financial pressure reached maximum intensity when she filed emergency lien proceedings against 6 resistant households simultaneously. Her fabricated legal documents claimed community safety required immediate action against militant residents who posed ongoing threats to neighborhood stability. Mrs. Chen, Hank Morrison, the Williams family, and 3 other households faced losing their homes within 72 hours, unless they submitted to Cordelia's extortion demands and paid thousands in accumulated fines for imaginary violations. But my surveillance had captured her smoking gun. Video footage of Cordelia's fake arrest team rehearsing their performance like community theater actors preparing for opening night. The evidence showed detailed coaching sessions where hired actors practiced badge positioning, handcuffing techniques, and intimidation dialogue designed to terrorize a law enforcement officer. Federal warrant preparation reached completion as evidence filled multiple boxes with enough criminal documentation to prosecute organized crime families. Simultaneous search warrants sat ready for execution at Cordelia's home, office, and financial accounts across 3 states. The FBI had never seen HOA fraud evidence this comprehensive or damning. Community protection escalated when several families received anonymous threats promising serious consequences if they continued opposing HOA authority. Clear witness intimidation charges that would add years to sentences while triggering federal civil rights violation statutes. The corporate shell game investigation revealed Cordelia's criminal sophistication. Multiple fake corporations, shell bank accounts scattered across state lines, fraudulent business licenses, and interstate wire transfers that painted a picture of organized financial crime worthy of federal racketeering charges. My professional vindication arrived when State Police Internal Affairs completed their investigation into Cordelia's false complaints. Not only was I completely exonerated, but investigators commended my professional handling of criminal activity while maintaining ethical boundaries throughout a complex investigation. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Everything converged on the weekend when Sage visited for our usual Mustang restoration session. She would witness her father's complete vindication and the community's liberation from years of systematic terrorism. Friday evening, the sweet smell of honeysuckle mixed with motor oil as Sage and I worked on the Mustang's engine in our garage sanctuary. She didn't know that hidden federal agents surrounded our property, that backup officers monitored every approach, that justice was finally ready to be served. "Dad, you seem different lately," she said, adjusting the carburetor with teenage precision that would have made Marina proud. "More like yourself again." She was right. Fighting for justice had helped me process grief in ways I'd never expected. Protecting our community honored Marina's belief that good people must never surrender to evil, regardless of how sophisticated or legally manipulative that evil appeared. The metallic weight of real handcuffs sat ready in my pocket as backup equipment, while the electric tension of impending justice filled the air like static before a thunderstorm. The distant hum of unmarked federal surveillance vehicles provided a soundtrack of preparation that sang like a choir of inevitable consequences. Saturday morning would bring Cordelia's fake arrest performance, and her real arrest for federal crimes that would destroy her life as completely as she'd tried to destroy ours. The woman who'd terrorized vulnerable families for years was about to discover that some people fight back with federal prosecutors, professional law enforcement, and evidence that no defense attorney could challenge. Cordelia Pemberton Hayes had picked the wrong neighborhood, targeted the wrong family, and chosen the wrong enemy for her criminal enterprise. Now she was about to pay the full price for every choice she'd made. Saturday afternoon arrived with the kind of perfect weather that made backyard barbecues feel sacred. Sage and I were grilling burgers on our patio, the familiar sizzle of meat mixing with her teenage chatter about college applications, when two uniformed officers marched up our driveway like they owned the place. Chief Garrett Blackwood? The lead actor wore sergeant stripes that looked authentic enough to fool civilians. His partner carried plastic handcuffs and what appeared to be official arrest warrants. "You need to come with us immediately." The performance was almost impressive. They cited multiple HOA violations, criminal property destruction, and official misconduct in the performance of your duties. According to their fabricated paperwork, I was under arrest for using my position to intimidate innocent residents. Sage froze beside the grill, spatula in hand, watching her father face what looked like professional destruction. The terror in her 16-year-old eyes nearly broke my resolve to play the helpless victim. "There must be some mistake," I said, hands raised in apparent submission while my hidden backup recorded every word. "I'm just trying to enjoy a cookout with my daughter." "No mistake, sir. You're coming with us now." That's when neighborhood windows filled with faces, residents emerging from hiding spots as planned, phones filming the encounter that would soon dominate social media and news cycles. Mrs. Chen live-streamed from her porch, preserving evidence while building public outrage. The fake officers produced their plastic handcuffs with theatrical authority, clearly enjoying their power trip over someone they believed was just another victim of Cordelia's system. The cold plastic bit into my wrists as they began their arrest performance. "Dad!" Sage's voice cracked with fear and fury. "This is insane!" Perfect timing. I gave my signal, touching my ear like I was adjusting a hearing aid, and the world exploded into real law enforcement action. Detective Riley Thornton emerged from behind our neighbor's SUV, weapon drawn and badge displayed. "Police! Nobody move!" Two uniformed officers materialized from concealment positions, surrounding the fake cops who suddenly looked like deer in headlights. But the real show started when Cordelia's white Mercedes screeched into view, expecting to witness my public humiliation. Instead, she drove straight into a federal takedown operation featuring more badges than a law enforcement convention. FBI agent Sarah Martinez stepped into the driveway like justice personified, federal credentials gleaming in afternoon sunlight. "Cordelia Pemberton Hayes, you're under arrest for federal wire fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, impersonation of law enforcement officers, and organized financial crimes." The look on Cordelia's face was priceless. Pure shock transitioning to desperate calculation as she realized her entire criminal empire was collapsing in real time. "Wait," she stammered. "This is just a neighborhood dispute. These people are—" "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent," I interrupted, producing my real badge and displaying it for the growing crowd of witnesses. "I'm Chief Garrett Blackwood, and you've just committed multiple federal felonies in front of enough law enforcement to staff a small army." The neighborhood erupted like New Year's Eve crossed with the 4th of July. Residents who'd suffered under Cordelia's reign of terror emerged cheering from houses where they'd hidden for years. Someone popped champagne. Mrs. Chen raised her live stream phone higher, broadcasting justice to the world. "This is impossible," Cordelia whispered as federal agents snapped real handcuffs onto her wrists. "I run this community. I have authority here." "Actually," Mrs. Chen called from her porch, her prosecutor voice carrying across the crowd, You never filed proper board elections. Your authority never legally existed. Local news crews arrived exactly on schedule, capturing Cordelia's perp walk and interviewing residents about years of systematic harassment and financial fraud. The story would lead every newscast and dominate social media for weeks. Federal agents executed simultaneous search warrants at Cordelia's multiple properties, discovering $180,000 in stolen HOA funds, fake badge manufacturing equipment, and files documenting organized fraud across multiple counties. Her fake officers and patrol team members were arrested in coordinated operations that stretched across 3 jurisdictions. But the moment that made everything worthwhile came when Sage threw her arms around me, tears of pride mixing with relief. "Dad, that was amazing. Mom would be so proud." She was right. Marina's belief that good people must fight evil had guided every decision, every investigation, every patient moment of building an airtight case that would protect families for years to come. My police department colleagues arrived to offer congratulations and professional recognition. The mayor announced a formal commendation for protecting the community while maintaining ethical standards throughout a complex investigation. The block party that erupted spontaneously felt like Liberation Day. Residents realized they were finally free from years of harassment, financial extortion, and systematic fear that had poisoned their own neighborhood. Cordelia's last words as federal agents loaded her into their vehicle were almost poetic. "This can't be happening. I had everything under control." But control based on lies, theft, and intimidation never lasts when it faces truth, evidence, and real justice. 8 months later, justice was served with the kind of satisfying finality that makes you believe the system actually works sometimes. Cordelia received 8 years in federal prison, ordered to pay $340,000 in restitution to victims, and banned from serving on any HOA board for life. All fraudulent foreclosures were reversed, and 12 families recovered their stolen homes. The courtroom was packed with residents she'd terrorized, watching their tormentor finally face consequences for years of systematic theft and harassment. Mrs. Chen sat in the front row, her federal prosecutor instincts satisfied by watching justice delivered with maximum legal impact. Willowbrook Estates underwent complete transformation. The old HOA dissolved faster than sugar in rain, replaced by a democratically elected board with transparent financial management and reasonable rules that actually improved community life. Mrs. Chen was unanimously elected president, bringing federal-level accountability to neighborhood governance. The healing in our community was remarkable to witness. Families who'd lived in fear for years began talking to neighbors again, organizing block parties, letting children play freely without worrying about violation notices. The sound of laughter replaced the ominous whir of golf cart enforcement patrols. My personal growth surprised everyone, especially myself. Fighting for justice had helped me process Marina's death in ways grief counseling never accomplished. Protecting our community's families honored her memory while teaching me that healing comes through service, not isolation. "Dad, you're different now," Sage told me during one of our weekend garage sessions. "Stronger somehow. Mom would be proud of how you protected everyone's home the way you protected ours." She was absolutely right. The Mustang Restoration Project had evolved from grief therapy into neighborhood attraction. Other car enthusiasts joined our weekend sessions, and what Cordelia had tried to destroy as a violation became the heart of community bonding. Professional recognition followed when I received the State Law Enforcement Community Service Award. The FBI invited me to consult on HOA fraud investigations nationwide, as Cordelia's case became a template for prosecuting similar criminal enterprises. The financial recovery was equally important. Our Victim Assistance Fund helped families cover legal costs and repair damage from years of harassment. Several residents received professional financial counseling to prevent future exploitation by learning to recognize organized fraud schemes. But the most meaningful change was educational. I partnered with the State Attorney General's office to create an HOA fraud awareness program, teaching residents their legal rights and how to spot illegal enforcement tactics. The program now operates in 12 states, protecting thousands of families from Cordelia-style criminals. Our community established annual Community Protection Day, a free legal clinic combined with HOA rights education and neighborhood safety planning. What started as our victory celebration became a model for other communities fighting similar fraud. The scholarship program we created using recovered HOA funds honored Marina's memory perfectly. The Marina Blackwood Memorial Scholarship supports criminal justice students focusing on community protection. ensuring her belief in fighting for justice continues, inspiring future generations. Knowledge I'd gained through this nightmare became valuable for every homeowner. Always request detailed HOA financial audits and board meeting minutes before buying property. Research your state's specific laws regarding fee limitations and enforcement procedures. Many HOAs operate beyond their legal authority because residents don't know their rights. Most importantly, document everything and never face HOA disputes alone. Organized resistance is infinitely more effective than individual complaints. 3 other states contacted me to investigate similar fraud schemes based on precedents established in Cordelia's prosecution. Her criminal enterprise had inspired copycat operations that federal authorities were now systematically dismantling using our evidence-gathering techniques. The personal healing was the greatest victory. I realized this experience had taught me that protecting community was Marina's final gift, showing me purpose beyond grief, meaning beyond personal loss. Her dream of a peaceful retirement home had evolved into something greater, a neighborhood where families felt safe and protected. The transformation was complete 1 year later during our community's first annual Protection Day celebration. Sunset painted the sky in shades of hope, while families gathered for barbecue and fellowship in our shared spaces. Sage taught neighborhood kids about car engines under the hood of our restored Mustang. Mrs. Chen shared legal advice over lemonade and stories that made everyone laugh. Hank Morrison's American flag flew proudly on his properly decorated porch, no longer a violation but a symbol of freedom from tyranny. The sound of children's laughter filled spaces where fear once ruled, while porch lights glowed warmly without anyone measuring their wattage. The sweet scent of genuine community cookout mixed with honeysuckle from Mrs. Chen's memorial garden, where Harold's roses bloomed more beautifully than ever. The satisfied crunch of gravel under feet walking freely in their own neighborhood replaced the predatory whir of enforcement patrols. But the most powerful moment came when new residents asked about our community's safety and happiness. We could honestly tell them they were moving into a neighborhood that had faced evil and chosen to fight back with law, evidence, and unity. Cordelia Pemberton Hayes thought she could terrorize vulnerable families into submission through sophisticated legal manipulation. Instead, she created something she never expected, a community that learned to protect itself and others from people exactly like her. Have you survived an HOA nightmare that seemed impossible to fight? Share your story in the comments. You might help someone else recognize fraud before it destroys their family's dreams. Your experience could be the warning that saves a neighbor from losing everything. Hit that subscribe button because next week I'm sharing the story of a homeowner who turned her neighbor's illegal Airbnb empire into a federal tax evasion case that brought down an entire rental fraud network. Trust me, you won't want to miss that takedown.